It's kind of an interesting path because when I finally did get the full healing from this thing, and that came when I got into religious life, um, and the Lord uses me to bring healing to others. You know, when I first heard God calling me to be a priest, my first reaction was, why would you ask me to do that?
Where were you when you heard this?
Well, the first time somebody said, I think you're a vocation to be a priest, I was in Medjugorje. I'd just done my 22-year confession with a priest. And he absolved me and I felt amazing. And then he says, I think you have a vocation to be a priest. And I was like, what? Did you not just listen to that confession? Clearly, I'm not called to be a priest. You know, it was a wild days of Wall Street. And he's like, no, all things are possible with God. But I was just like, no, the priest is a little bit Looney Tunes. And then but when I started, I came back to New York City, I had to get my life in order because, you know, the conversion's one thing, but now you have to implement it. Part of that was I had to get rid of the bad influences in my life. I had a lot of bad friends who were not good influences, you know, big with the cocaine, big with the partying. I had to go. And I joined the Wall Street Young Catholics Association to make new friends with guys that were trying to live virtuous lives. Big 180, just by putting the right people around you. They lift you up.
So hold on. So how crazy did it get on Wall Street with you?
The life is crazy. I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't want to scandalize the faithful. But, you know, you're living in the biggest city in the world with everything available and you're making a ton of money, you can fill in the blanks. And then I started working for a public relations firm where I was working with both New York corporations, big ones, Citicorp, Chase, Pfizer, but also the celebrity route. So Jennifer Lopez was a client, Tommy Hilfiger, Rolling Stone magazine's photographer Mark Seliger, and he was introducing me to people like Brad Pitt and Jerry Seinfeld at his parties. And there's just, you know, there's no end to the craziness that goes on in a lot of these circles, okay? I'm not saying any of these people were doing that, but the lifestyle is there if you want it. So, yeah, I had to make big decisions on reading all that stuff out and just working towards a virtuous life, which would bring forth the peace that I was really looking for. It's just peace, a peace where I just felt good about my life and I wasn't always anxious or angry or just full of all these negative emotions. So here I am, the Lord, when he asked me, he said, listen, you know, I'm going to use you to bring healing and reparation to people who've been hurt. I was like, oh, well, that's all right. That's kind of an interesting twist. Now, today, looking back, I could say, well, that should be every priest. It shouldn't just be a special case, you know, because you got abused. But he was going into that deeper for the abuse victims too. And I would find myself in the most ridiculous positions. I speaking in a prison to, you know, 500 murderers and rapists who, by the way, probably 80% of them were sexually abused as kids, and they went into drugs, and then they went into getting the money for those drugs and got involved in all sorts of bad things, where I'm preaching to them my story and telling them that God has a plan for their life too. And I'm watching these big, huge skinhead murderers, and there's just tears coming down because they've never heard this.